Good evening and welcome to Boom Market Stock Show. This is your host, Rian Hobson, and we had one hell of a trading day. Look, I actually went entirely out of the market. I didn't understand what was going on. You had actually the dollar and actually gold move in the same direction, and that for me means that spells absolute nonsense. But we have a hell of a show today because actually there was some breaking news that came out of South Africa about 3 hours ago, I would say, where our energy officials was actually releasing a statement, and that is to do with the fuel shortages that's actually happening in South Africa. Look, it doesn't look good at all for South Africa, and they all blame it on the story of Ukraine, of the war in Ukraine, and there is now a shortage of oil, not just in South Africa but globally. But South Africa will be hit hard because of our refineries that are closing down. And also, we don't have actually oil in South Africa, and we are highly dependent on other countries to send us oil. And that is actually the issue of today. Now, listen, this is actually the story. I'm actually just sharing my screen with you. South Africa may be forced to ration fuel if if the Ukraine crisis persists, officials say. So let me just go on with the article. South Africa may resort to rationing fuel if the military operation in Ukraine continues for much longer. The country's Department of Mineral Resources Energy told Parliament on Tuesday amid fears of a looming fuel crisis due to the operation. Now, if you go on with the article, it goes on. This is actually the most important part. We're seeing evidence of a decreased availability of certain products. There are indications of shortage of diesel globally. I will repeat it again. There are indications of shortage of diesel globally. Diesel that had been flowing to Europe from Russia is no longer flowing at the same volumes, with some being diverted towards the war affected in Russia. SA will be okay for March and April, but if the war goes beyond that, we will begin to experience security of supply issues. Listen, that is one hell of a statement that comes from the Energy Department of South Africa. That means that we will not have fuel in South Africa. And where we have, there was also a measure that, if the article goes on, where they said we have to put in 50 liters of fuel in your car per person. I don't know, per week, per month. I'm not sure. But that will happen. That story was last seen that was, I think, during apartheid. I will get that piece of the article for you. It's actually here. He told the members of parliament that the country could be forced to limit fuel sales to 50 liters per motorist and urge people to work from home when necessary. This actually happened 3 hours ago, where they actually say South Africa is sitting with a fuel crisis. This is actually real, because they say there's a shortage of diesel across the world, and South Africa get affected by this as well. So you have to prepare for the worst. I don't know, you're going to stack up with fuel or whatever, but it looks like it will happen. Now, that is now, South Africa have capacity just for March and April. And if it gets worse, then we are done. Now, this was a story that came out of Russia. They say here, Kiev not serious to find mutual acceptable solution. So which means, I'm sorry to say it, the shit will even go down further. So we might see March out of the way. April also, where it will just continue, and it will just continue on. And if it reaches to May, South Africa will be out of fuel, where we have to throw in 50 liters per motorist, I don't know, per week or whatever. And weekends, you will not have fuel. That is what happened in apartheid, because I was asking actually someone about it. Look, it will be a bloody disaster if this happens to South Africa. We must now know, if we run out of diesel, that means that we will sit with load shedding stage 8, because these guys are using the emergencies to run our electricity. On top of that, you will not have fuel to go to work or to the store, or actually to run your business or to cut grass or whatever. So this will be a disaster. Now, I would like to know, where does all these fucking people come in? This green cuck people comes in, when every time when we had Shell here to produce the fuel, But then they come in, oh, what about the environment? What now if you can't fucking drive around? Because this is the reality. We will not have fuel. If this war persists, and it looks highly, highly likely that we will not have fuel, and it looks highly likely that this crisis of Ukraine will continue. And also the other thing is, South African government that literally wrecked the refineries, now we're sitting with a problem because we have to import actually fuel. That is the nonsense. You know, one is the government, and two is these green activists that's literally fucking up things for everybody. I don't know where the fuck do they get their data from, but they just like this green cuck stories, and now we're sitting with a problem with the fuel shortage. We had Sasol here. Not Sasol, we had actually Shell here about to drill fuel. But no, the environment and all this type of shit that they all can think of just about the environment. Green cuck. I don't know where we will get actually electricity also. Because how the fuck you don't have electricity, you don't have fuel in your car, and then you blaming a 16-year-old from fucking Sweden with her green cut story that the whole world is fucking following. This is fucking insane. This is absolutely insane. And if you go further with that article, I'm just actually sharing my screen now. Food and fuel and fertilizer prices are skyrocketing. Supply chains are being disrupted, and the costs and delays of transportation of import of goods, when available, are at record levels. Food, bread, you must remember also that Russia and Ukraine were exporting or 25% of the wheat in the world. And that is fertilizers as well and all of those things that goes with it. Excuse me. Bread prices, you can guarantee yourself that will go up. And fuel, electricity, everything will just go up. If this war continues, because that is what the officials are saying, this is absolute a disaster that will happen around May if we don't have a solution for this problem. And well, the guys left, Shell left, so I don't know where will this. I wish these green people will have a solution now, because we are sitting without a fuel. I wish they can have a bloody solution for it. I'm sure they're gonna say we must get solar panels or something to drive around. Fucking pathetic. Anyway, now with the market, it looks actually even worse. I couldn't actually trade or open up a trade today. This was actually totally a disaster of a day. I didn't even bother to open up any trades because there was so much news that came through that were actually extremely confusing. The first one was this morning. Now, let me just scroll up. This was the first part. This was 2 a.m. this morning. The Chinese industrial production. Now, the forecast was about 3.9%, or the consensus was at 3.9%. The actual came out at 7.4%. Very good Chinese news. You had retail sales that came out at 6.7%. The consensus was at 3%. You have fixed investments in China was 5% consensus. It came out 12.2%. This was actually massive. Now, what happens with this news? When you have specifically, you have the industrial production at this rate. Look, 3.9% and 7.5% is a massive difference. So that means that your commodity prices would have gone up. That is now anything that is commodity prices, your coal, lumber prices, oil, everything, all of that was supposed to go up this morning. It did not happen. Now, I didn't wake up at 2, but when I saw the news, nothing actually happened. The prices actually went down, especially oil were down actually 8%. Then it goes to about the PPI number that came out, which I said yesterday. The PPI inflation number would be double digits, and it is double digits. This was last seen in 2008, where you have 10% producer price index was basically at 10%, and on top of that, you have the core PPI number at 8.4%. This is actually massive numbers. So which means the Federal Reserve will act tomorrow. Well, it said that the Federal Reserve will only raise the interest rates with about a 0.25%. A lot of people are now pricing it in at about 50 basis points. That is now for tomorrow. Why I couldn't actually make any trades open is the fact that when the news came out, the dollar didn't move. It went further down. And the sad thing is, gold and the dollar is actually moving exactly the same. And this has been happening now for the last few weeks now, since the war basically started. The dollar and gold is actually basically moving the same. That's why this whole story doesn't make sense at all. So when this news broke out, I was expecting that, okay, the dollar would go up and obviously gold will go up because actually the inflation is up. So it means the Federal Reserve will act. Inflation is high, which means gold will go up because normally gold is a very good hedge for inflation. But that was not the case. Both of them went down. So that's why I didn't take the trade. And on top of that, the Chinese news this morning came out positive, but nothing actually happened. So in that instance, I did not take the trade. Now, the big focus for tomorrow will be the Federal Reserve. What will the Federal Reserve do to raise interest rates or something? Okay, I got actually a question here. What are your, sorry about that. What is your expectation? What are your expectations on the NASDAQ for tomorrow's news? What do you think the Fed will say? I think the Federal Reserve will lift up the interest rates tomorrow. They might calm down the bond markets, and that might be it might. I'm not saying it will. It might actually be positive for the NASDAQ because then bond yields will be slightly a bit lower, although that will go up. It could be actually in favor of the NASDAQ, but because it's only at 0.25, unless the Federal Reserve is actually surprising us with a 0.5% or 0.75%, then I would say the NASDAQ would go down. But the market already started to price in already the 0.25. So I think the Federal Reserve will come up the same story with the 0.25%, and we might see actually the NASDAQ go slightly up, but not much. But I do expect the NASDAQ to be green. But that we have to wait for tomorrow. The market, I anticipate, because this is the first interest rate since the start of the pandemic, so the market will be actually very confused tomorrow. Look, at 0.25 and the economy's world oil with money, of the US economy, is still flooded with dollars. So I think a 0.25 will not do much. And I do expect actually the NASDAQ to go up, and even the Dow Jones. I hope I actually answered your question there, Delicate. But we'll have to see tomorrow what will be their final decision for the interest rate. Thanks a lot for the question. The PPI number, basically, I'm a bit shaky there because that number was supposed to be determined. The Federal Reserve will act with aggression, and then we would actually see the dollar stronger, and then we will see the gold price. But it did not happen. Cryptos on the other side actually went up, which was actually strange. Your cryptos went up. Your Dow Jones, your NASDAQ went actually up, but your commodity prices were actually in two ways. I did not trade basically on your commodities because I'm not sure in which direction. I did not even open up FX as well or currency pairs because I didn't go well. I didn't go with the NASDAQ or the Dow Jones either because I did not understand what the hell was going on this morning from China right through. And then on top of that, we have a bloody lockdown in China, which I don't know for how long will it be. They said it will be up for a week, and that actually put down the commodity prices. And just on the last part for interest sake, because this will also signal some serious issues going forward. This is actually to do with the petrodollar. Saudi Arabia consider accepting yuan for Chinese oil sales. So which means these guys actually want to cut out the US dollar. The Saudis actually met with the Chinese, and this is what they came up to. Look, we all know if you go against the almighty dollar, bullets will start to fly. We know what happened with Gaddafi. We know what happened with Saddam. We know what happened with al-Assad. Okay, he's still alive. But if the Chinese and the Saudis are going together and want to cut out the US dollar, and the Chinese don't want to buy actually any more oil on dollars, that will spell actually war. That is not good at all. So that was discussion today, and it had some cracks with the petrodollar. That is some serious issues, and that will have some serious consequences, not just for Saudi Arabia and China, but for all of us across the world. But honestly, with the fuel shortages that is looming for South Africa, that is the scariest part, because that can cause some serious economic issues for South Africa. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Thanks a lot, Delegate, for the question. And then I will see you guys tomorrow at about 8 o'clock. And please don't forget, there's a link below for my radio show in the mornings at 10 o'clock. So you just can click on it. It's on Mixler. Click on it, register, and then you'll get my updates in the morning at 10 o'clock. Bye-bye.